Hello there guys, my name is Boz and today we're going to be looking at the Labo VR garage again. So I had a really good response off the last video, so I've come up with a couple more solutions, a couple more things that might help you in your own creations. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Hello there guys, my name's Boz and today we're having another look at the Nintendo Labo VR. So I had a good response to my last video, a couple of questions that came up. I've done a bit more experimenting and I just wanted to show you some of the things that are going on here. So if we go into the game we looked at last time, so we've obviously got this game here, and if you remember we'd created a script to launch ourselves across the room, but had this issue of there being these blocks that come out afterwards and they don't disappear. So it's a very imperfect system, but I've actually found a much better way of doing it. So if we go to this other file, I'll show you a demonstration of it. So here we are. Right, so what we have here is our man. We haven't built a level on this one, just purely for the... So what we've got here is we've got the same sort of dash. So just another example. So the dash is there. The dash is completely changeable. We can change that. So what we've done instead is, so most of this is to do with the camera, and you'll see I've actually improved the camera quite a bit. So I'm actually now able to use the right stick to rotate my camera independent of my character, a bit like in Mario Odyssey or other platforming games. So it's a little bit more, so it still follows my character, and I will explain that at some point, so we'll come back to that. But first things first, let's just have a look at this quick solution to... So what we have here is we've got a teleport object entrance. So we've got the entrance, we want our person there. So we've attached a trigger, we've attached this box to our person, attached the trigger to the action for the teleport. So this basically activates the teleport. So rather than having a zone that we go into for our teleport, it's attached to our person. So it's actually inside our person. We've got it set up. If you see, the connection point is central. So directly on our person. What this means is that it creates a teleport as soon as we press that button. So that teleport will only exist in a real way once we've got it on our person, once we press that button. So we've got it set as ZR as our trigger button for our dash. So like last time, we've got the system set up so that it's timed. So we're just double checking that it's when this equals 1, say it's got a 2-second timer in between, so you can't dash all of the time, otherwise it's very easy to break some of the level. So we've got our button, got our whole number counter, and then we've got a thing that says if that equals 1, then output this, and it also says this resets after 2 seconds by going on the 0 here. So there we are. So that does. So looking at the teleport exit, then we've got that set up also, but we've got it set up so that it's on the front and it's connecting on the back of the parent. Oh, sorry, onto the front of the parent object, and it's coming off the back. So there we are. What we've got here is, rather than the teleport physics, so you can preserve physics, but you can also do a reset. Now, if you do if you click reset, it actually allows you to set a launch speed, so we can have our launch speed all the way up at 100, and we've got a launch direction. So this is exactly how we're using the other thing, but instead it now launches. So this is going to make me go flying now when I... So you can see I'm flying even further than I was. Doesn't take very long for me to reach the end of the map. There we are. So, and because this doesn't use any boxes, we obviously don't end up with anything left out behind us. So we've just set up this with a big offset against our character. So it's set up for a certain distance in front of him. And just like the other side, it's got a speed and a momentum to it. So it's not a straight dash. Rather than working how a teleport would normally work, it doesn't just plop you somewhere, it throws you there. So it works a bit like how portals work in Portal. So it's a conservation of movement, and it's giving it, so turning down this again to 30 will allow us to go back to our normal jump. Now you can have it so it's a little tiny jump as well. I'll just demonstrate that. So that's a little tiny jump. Still a bit of movement there, but a lot less. So only really good for very small gaps. So we'll set this, I like it at 30, so I'm going to work on this a little bit more. So what I'm going to recommend is, now that we look at the cameras. Now these cameras are very, very complicated in terms of how they're set up. So I will try and keep it brief. So this is our jump trigger, and that basically is set up with the timer as per the dash. Got all our normal player controls there as well on our analog sticks. So for our camera, we've got a couple of different things set up. So we've got a camera target set up here, and I've set up the tracking as follows. So that dictates our camera position, but it's not locked to our player like we did last time. Instead, we've put a location on our character and we've attached it to them. So we've got a reference as to where our character is, and what this allows us to do is then we can just say left right on our right Joy-Con. This is a counter, so as I press left this will go down, as I press right it will go up, and it's got an on start value. So on start is set to 0. This is just a normal counter, just like we've got up there, but rather than using it single time, it just uses that. Now, I'm not certain whether this plus is actually necessary. Let's see, if we remove it, let's see if that changes anything. Does it still work? Still works here, so does it cause any problems in game? No, so that plus actually isn't necessary. So I did this by reverse engineering some of the code from one of the games that Nintendo have done. So what we've got here is we've got an angle position transform. So setting angle position, you can find that under the middle section, angle position, and we've got it mapped to an input range. So we then do the map plus the location. So this allows it to track where it is currently, and this allows it to track where, so this one allows us to track where it is currently, so that's going to the location. This one is based off our left or right movements, and then this will go into our camera function. So if I zoom in a little bit to the camera function, just drag over there. So this is set up to our z-axis. And our y-axis is just literally set directly from our location sensor to the camera position. And we've got very similar thing for the other side. So obviously we've still got our left and right here. This then allows us to map this. Got our plus here. Again, I'm not certain that, no, that is necessary in this instance, because we're saying that plus this equals IR x-axis. So essentially the location sensor is working off of where we currently are. So our camera position works off our location sensor, sorry. So it's saying that plus whatever we're doing here, and it's outputting that to here, and it's doing the same thing here. So it's saying wherever it is now, let's look at that. Let's add the movement that we're adding from our plus and minus here with our joystick, and then that allows us to get a nice tracking that we can move around, and it's a nice steady movement. So it's like so, if I go left, it's going to go left. I can go all the way around my character, go right, go around my character to the right. So nice and easy there. It is a bit more complicated in terms of setup, but once you've got used to that idea, I recommend you just save a camera with this, save a file that's got set up for this, so you don't have to do it every time. I recommend that for most of the cameras, to be honest with you. There is quite a few save files. If you're making something really massive, maybe you'd need to delete it, but you know, you just need to remember then, or come back here for reference. So another thing I've got here is I've actually set up a fancy object. So I've got my bear here, and I've got my person. So I'm going to make my person invisible and not solid. So you can't see that. I'll make the bear visible and solid. So basically I've got these two connected. So the bear is connected to there. It is connected via an automatic connection point. And what we'll see then is, instead of our player character, so it's using the same movement as the person. So all this is doing is painting the bear over the person, and it will preserve everything else. So the jump isn't working. That's something we need to fix. I believe that's probably because the hitbox isn't moving enough, so it's not doing it. But anyway, the dash is still working, so we've got that tied together. So that's how we get fancy objects to move for something else. So we can use our bear as our player character if we so chose. So I'm just going to look at a couple of other different cameras now as well. So this is a game I've made. So this is a version with 2 players. Allows me to move left and right. So this is 2 people running around a little map, and I'll show you how my camera's set up for this. So my camera is just set up on the first player, to be honest with you. So it's camera position is set to the top of it, saying connect to the top and show from the top. So that's why it's a top-down view. And we've got our camera target set up so that it's on the back here. Sorry, on the front here. I can't remember. On the back there, and on the top there, so that we've got that nice over the head view. So yeah, as I say, it will. So if I let the second character die, it will literally just follow the first person. I haven't figured out a way that you can have it so that if one dies, you see the camera's still following his corpse. So I don't know how you would fix that. I'm not sure that's something that's possible. Fortunately, there are some limitations with this. So I'll show you a little bit of something I've done with this game. So we've got this multi-maze runner. So you'll see a couple of different things here. So I've got it set up. So now I've taken out the second person, and there's a little bit of a slowdown with the character. So if I go back here, we've got here. So I've got it slowed down. So the character is running a bit slower. That's interesting and it's important for something I'm going to show you in just a moment. What I've got here is when we get to these yellow blocks, there is a touch sensor on the floor there that you can see. It's speeding them up. So that's once round. So each lap it's going to get a little bit faster. It's twice round. A little bit more challenging now. 3 times around. So what I've got set up on that third time is that it changes to a different level. So this is a different level, and I'll show you this level again in a moment. Let's go back out to the one we were just looking at. Have a look at some of the code. So first things first, we've got this is our player character. This is our touch sensor. Now, as I said last time, I do recommend you lock things. It's important to make sure that you just do it. So the blocks here are mostly just there as references for me so that I know what's going on, so I can see that it's working. So I've got it set up as a decimal counter there. So those blocks don't serve any real function. This one here and this one here, which you see on the game map, are just objects with numbers so that we can then have a look at it. So I'll show you a couple of things. So first things first, let's have a look at our camera target. So as I say, set up very much like the other one. We're looking at it top, top, and top there. So camera position is just going to follow our character around and keep the same angle. So There's our person here, and those are both connected to them. We then have, now this is how we control his speed. So the player's speed is actually quite fast. I've got it set up as 4 times, which I don't need to tell you if you've played with this around with this already, is something that goes pretty fast. So it's not that starting speed, it's a finish speed. So I don't know how many laps it takes you to get around that way. Probably the maths is pretty easy. So what we've got here is, rather than using our on start, which is what I've used for the other games where I just want to start running, we've got a figure here. So we have 0.3. So this is saying the output of this block is up to 1 by this touch sensor. So this touch sensor makes it go up 1. And then we're timesing that by 0.3, so it's moving up in 0.3 of their movement increments because it's a digital input. So this is putting out 0.3 times this. So first lap would be 0.3 increase, then 0.6, then 0.9. So what we've then got is our standard input. So this is our standard input. It's a 0.4, so it's going 0.4 times its regular movement. So times that 4 that we've already got set. So these two, including this from the touch sensor, times by each other, plus the base movement. So it's always increasing. So what I've got here is I've got that set up to show what the current output is. And then as we go round, it will show what the input is increasing to, and this one just shows what the maths is there as well. So what we'd need to do is we'd need to set up a similar thing for the left and right, so that our left and right movement doesn't speed up. That's currently not something I've done, but that is something that we would need to implement later on down the line. So with those two added, it then goes down to the person and outputs that much force on them. So person works on a digital scale, so depending on what number is fed into this, so if it's fed into a 1, which is a standard trigger, so if I was just to put left right directly into there, that's a standard trigger. So they're moving at movement speed 4 whenever you press left and right in this, which is why you'd need to implement this. Same maths to that. So you'll notice if I go into it again, they seems to move a bit faster whenever I'm turning, but as soon as I'm going straight, it's moving at a steady speed again. So you'd need to implement that there as well. So the same maths can be applied. So let's go ahead and build it. And luckily, because we've already built it, we don't need to really do too much to get it to work. So we just need to set this up. So in fact, we can use the same box here. So if we copy this, no, we don't need to do that, so we just do so copy this, which is our standard. Fact, I think probably one of the best ways of doing this is set it as a map, so it starts on 0.4. That's not correct. Yeah, I struggle with these sometimes. I've got to think about how this works. Right, okay, well, to get the left and right, because we're not using just a standard input, I'm going to need to think a little bit about how this works, how this maths works, in order to get that. So I will just delete this for now. We'll go back to our left and right. I will solve that issue later in terms of the movement speed. This is everything else, so let's drag that up there. Is that connected to the right one? Yep. Okay, great. So what I also had there is when you saw me go all the way around 3 times, I actually had it set up so that it counts how many times you've gone around, and once you've completed 3 laps, it changes levels. So I'll demonstrate again. I can get around 3 times. It can be a bit challenging. Switch since I'm playing with my right Joy-Con on the left and right at the moment, purely because of the drift issue I discussed last time. Get a bit faster, you can see that getting faster. As we get closer to our true speed, the issue with the left and right stick becomes less and less. Oh, right, okay, yeah, so we made it. Made it all the way around. So what we've got then is it loading into a different level. So let's explain how we did that. Let's go back to the file we were just on, say. So here we are, this is what controls what level we're on. So we have the touch sensor, which is our finish line there. We've got that set up with a whole number generator, whole number counter, sorry. So it's +1 every time you go around. So every time it triggers that, so this is set up as a trigger, not as a hold. That is important because we only want it to trigger once, otherwise as they're running through it they're going to have issues. Now you can see there's a little gap down here. I don't believe the player character can fit down there. I'd be impressed if you managed to miss the finish line, but like I said, this is just a demonstration anyway at this point. This isn't a proper game that I'm building. It's just a bit rough and just to figure out how a couple of things work. So we've got this, which is our constant, so we've just gone into the middle here. To get constant, you just have to go to calculate constant, and that just gives you something to compare it to. So it says if the number of times you've gone through this sensor equals 3, so you're using the compare here, switch file to switch file to file 10. So you can set any files, you can have multi-levels. And what that allows us to do is when we go through that 3 times, no, that's because I was trying to turn around, I was trying to see if I could. I don't think so. I think it's because of the speed that you're going, I think you'd struggle to get a full turn in there because of the speed increase when you're turning right. Oh. Come on, it's not exactly Dark Souls. You can make it around the edge. Faster. So it's 1, 2. Come on, you can do it. 3. So then we've got to our next level. What we have here is a slightly different way of controlling the character. So you'll notice no matter where I go, I can't really turn like I can in the other one. So this is sort of a trench runner game that I'm working on, looking at. And what we're going to set up is we're going to set up different obstacles along this course, and that allows you to sort of create an endless runner essentially. So we'd set this up with one level with the obstacles. We create boxes along our trench, and that will allow us to do that. So that's a couple of different games you can make. So I'll show you how the camera works in this, and because it works slightly differently, it actually controls how you can move. So let's have a look at how our character's set up. So our frame of reference is the world. our camera position is set up so that it's on the front and the top. Our camera target is set up so it's just on the top. So the camera target is exactly the same, but our camera position isn't. Now, because of that, we've got it set up so that we can't move fully around. So it doesn't matter how quickly we turn. I can't turn further than a diagonal. So I can't turn around and come back at myself because I don't want that. So I've got my character running from the start, they're going full speed. So unlike the other one where I've got a speed increase, now I could set it up so that this increases after certain points on the map. So to do that, we just literally set up a touch sensor up here. So let's say we want a touch sensor, we'll go here, here. So this will say go across. Okay, let's just copy it because it's not big enough. And this is something I should do more often. I should set up all my things with wormholes, because wormholes make life easier for you instead of stretching across the entire map or zooming out and trying to hit things like a bullseye from miles away. So in theory we could set this just like we did our other one.
A few moments later.
Right, so you'll have to excuse me there, I did a little cut because I just needed to solve this quickly. So much harder to do that whilst I'm commentating over it. So what I've got set up here is I've got my touch sensors as you saw previously. I've got my A wormhole, which is just taking the value of those touch sensors over here. And I've got my constant set up, so this is a times value, so this just gives it a speed boost, and that's our starting constant. So it's saying whatever this number is times this number equals that. So we could also set up, so if we wanted to set up another lot of these, we don't need to do this every time, we'd have to have loads of different lists, I believe. Now I've set these up as obviously tracking the person. So if I copy both of these, they should probably be further away, but for the purpose of what we're doing here, it doesn't really make much difference. We'll get the idea. The little speed boost, right? So send in these two inputs through wormhole, and we'll, actually that can be wormhole A. It doesn't really make any difference. In fact, we don't need to set up separate wormholes. We can just have it as is. So it should detect that we've been through one and put 1 here, and so it'll be 1 times it, and then it'll be times 2, so it'll be 0.6. So that will then take us up to our full speed. So we can have it speed up as we're going through the level. So we're starting off very slow. I'm controlling with the wrong stick because I've got to set up on different controls on this map. Oh. Oh. It's moving so slow I can't really figure it out. Right, there we are. Once, twice, and we're going quite fast now. We've sped up twice there. That's essentially what we've caused. So by having those touch sensors there, we've allowed this to pick up what these read and say output this much more speed to the top speed of our character. So in this one we've got it set up as 2.1. If we speed it up, that'll speed up the beginning speed, start a bit faster, even faster, and there we are. So what we'd obviously do is you'd want to have a couple of challenges here, so a couple of things to jump over or maybe dodge around, and then obviously we get to the end of our map, and then we want it to load into another level. That would do with the other one. So I'll just show you how that was set up. And This is nice and easy to set up. So let's copy our touch sensor, because we'll need that. Copy. Now, I'm not the tidiest person if it comes to my code and things, so you'll have to forgive me if it makes your eyes bleed. Like I say, I should be using wormholes, but wormholes do make life easier for you. And most of the time I'm really just figuring out stuff. So, but I think there's some real potential here. I'd be interested to see what people are creating. Doesn't seem there's a lot of people tinkering about with it on YouTube at the moment. I'd like to see even more. Hopefully these tutorials will encourage a bit of a community. So if we set up this here, we copy that. So using the same touch sensors we used down there, cover our entire map with it. So we've got our lane here. And then we just need to say when that person touches that, switch file. And we can switch it to file, any one of our files. So let's just say file 6 for now. I don't know what's on file 6. So literally that's all it requires. It just requires one connection there. And one there. And that'll then instantly load into level 6, which was, it's this build. So as I say, I can fix this with some of the things that we've implemented now.